shelter is alive with activity, a warm contrast to the icy wind howling through the New York streets outside. Volunteers buzz around, stacking trays of food, pouring cups of coffee, and welcoming the steady stream of guests seeking warmth and nourishment. Barron Trump stands near the serving line, adjusting his apron with an eager but focused expression. This isn't Barron's first time volunteering at a homeless shelter, but tonight feels different. The air hums with a sense of urgency as the line of people waiting for a meal snakes out the door. It's the week before Christmas and the shelter is at capacity. "Barron, over here!" Maria, the volunteer coordinator, waves him over to the serving station. He strides over, his tall frame moving with quiet confidence. "What's the plan tonight?" "Turkey, mashed potatoes, green beans, and roll," Maria replies, handing him a ladle. "You're on mashed potatoes. Think you can handle that?" Barron grins. "I think I've got it." He steps into place beside the other volunteers who are already dishing out food with practiced efficiency. The faces of the shelter guests pass by, each one different, each carrying their own story. Some offer polite smiles or murmured thanks, while others keep their heads down, their expressions a mixture of exhaustion and guarded hope. "Mashed potatoes?" Barron asks a woman holding a tray. She nods, her small child clutching her coat sleeve. Barron scoops a generous portion onto their plates. "Enjoy your meal," he says warmly, watching as the mother gently ushers her child to an open seat. The line moves steadily, but Barron can't help noticing a man near the back. He's taller than most, his thin frame draped in layers of mismatched threadbare clothing. His face is gaunt, his beard scruffy, and his eyes dart around the room with a mix of suspicion and defeat. When it's finally his turn, he steps forward hesitantly, holding out a tray with trembling hands. "Mashed potatoes?" Barron asks, his tone softening. The man nods without looking up. "Yeah, thanks." As Barron scoops the potatoes onto his tray, he notices how tightly the man grips the edges, his knuckles white from the pressure. "Enjoy your meal," Barron says, but the man has already turned away, heading toward an empty table in the far corner of the room. Barron watches him go, something about the man's demeanor tugging at his heart. He's seen many people come through the shelter, but this man seems especially weighed down, as though he's carrying more than just the burden of hunger. "Hey, Maria," Barron says during a lull in the line. "Who's that guy over there? The one sitting by himself in the corner?" Maria glances over and nods knowingly. "That's Charlie. He's been coming here off and on for the past year. He doesn't talk much, but he's had a tough time. Lost his job, his apartment, pretty much everything." Barron frowns, his gaze fixed on Charlie. "Do you think he'd mind if I sat with him?" Maria smiles. "You can try, but don't be surprised if he brushes you off. He's not used to people reaching out." Barron unties his apron and grabs a bottle of water before making his way across the room. As he approaches the table, Charlie looks up briefly, his expression guarded. "Mind if I sit here?" Barron asks, keeping his tone casual. Charlie shrugs, not meeting his gaze. "It's a free country." Barron takes the seat across from him, placing the water on the table. "I'm Barron. What's your name?" "Charlie," the man mutters, focusing on the food in front of him. "Nice to meet you, Charlie," Barron says warmly. "How's the food tonight?" Charlie snorts lightly. "It's food. Better than nothing." Barron nods, undeterred by the curt response. "I'm glad you came here tonight. It's freezing out there." Charlie glances at him briefly, his eyes sharp and suspicious. "Why are you even talking to me? Don't you have better things to do?" Barron leans back slightly, his posture relaxed. "Not really. I like being here. Feels good to do something that matters." Charlie lets out a dry laugh, shaking his head. "Something that matters, huh? You don't know the first thing about what it's like to struggle." "You're probably right," Barron admits. "I've been lucky in ways a lot of people haven't, but that's why I'm here. Because if I can do something small to help, maybe it makes a difference." Charlie's expression softens slightly, though his shoulders remain tense. "What about you?" Barron asks gently. "What brought you here tonight?" Charlie hesitates, his fingers tracing the edge of his tray. "Long story. Lost my job a while back. One thing led to another. Now here I am." Barron listens intently, nodding as Charlie speaks. "Not that it matters," Charlie adds bitterly. "Once you fall this far, Nobody cares enough to help you back up. I care, Barron says firmly. Charlie looks at him, startled by the sincerity in his voice. I'm not saying I can fix everything, Barron continues, but I believe it's never too late to turn things around. You just need someone to believe in you. Charlie studies him for a long moment, his guarded expression wavering. You really think that? He asks quietly. I do, Barron says without hesitation, and I think you can believe it too. For the first time, Charlie's posture relaxes, the weight on his shoulders seeming a little lighter. Thanks, he mutters, his voice barely audible. Barron smiles. Anytime. The dining hall grows quieter as the initial rush of guests slows. The clang of trays and the hum of conversations create a soft background noise. Barron remains seated across from Charlie, watching as the man pokes at the last remnants of his meal. You seem like a good guy, Charlie, Barron says after a moment. You've been through a lot, but you're still here. That counts for something. Charlie chuckles bitterly. Still here. That's one way to put it. Barely scraping by is more like it. But you came to the shelter, Barron points out. That's not giving up. That's fighting to survive. Charlie looks up, his eyes narrowing slightly. You're awful young to be handing out life advice. How old are you, anyway? Barron smiles faintly. I'm 17. And yeah, I don't have all the answers. But I do know that you're stronger than you think. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. Charlie leans back in his chair, studying Barron with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. 17, huh? What are you doing here instead of being out with your friends or whatever rich kids do? Barron shrugs. I wanted to do something meaningful. A lot of people don't get the opportunities I've had, and I think it's important to give back. My mom's been a big influence on me that way. Charlie raises an eyebrow. Your mom? She one of those charity types? Something like that, Barron replies, smiling. She taught me that kindness goes a long way, especially when people are at their lowest. Charlie's gaze softens slightly, though his walls are still up. Well, she sounds like a good lady. You're lucky. I know I am, Barron says sincerely, but I think luck can change for anyone. You've just got to find the right path. Charlie shakes his head, laughing dryly. Kid, I've been looking for that right path for years. It doesn't exist. Barron leans forward, resting his arms on the table. Maybe it's not about finding the path. Maybe it's about creating one. Charlie stares at him, his expression unreadable. For a moment, neither of them speaks. The weight of the conversation hangs in the air, but Barron doesn't back down. Look, Barron says gently, I know it's not easy, and I can't pretend to understand everything you've been through, but I believe things can get better. You've got to believe it too. Charlie sighs heavily, his shoulders slumping. It's not that simple. No, Barron agrees, but it's worth trying. Before Charlie can respond, Maria approaches the table, her face lighting up when she sees Barron still talking to Charlie. Hey, Barron, there's a family that just came in and they could use some extra help. Mind giving me a hand? Barron looks at Charlie. Do you mind if I step away for a bit? I'd like to keep talking if you're okay with that. Charlie hesitates, then nods. Yeah, sure. I'm not going anywhere. Barron smiles and stands, following Maria toward the kitchen. As they walk, Maria leans in and whispers, You've got a way with people. You know that? Charlie doesn't open up to anyone. Barron glances back at the table where Charlie sits, staring into space. He just needs someone to believe in him. Maria nods approvingly. Well, whatever you're doing, keep it up. Barron spends the next half hour helping the new family settle in. A young mother with two small children, they're grateful but visibly exhausted. He serves them food, carries their trays to a table, and even entertains the kids for a few minutes while their mother eats in peace. When he finally returns to Charlie's table, he's relieved to see the man still sitting there, though his tray is now empty. Sorry about that, Barron says, taking his seat. Had to help out for a bit. No problem, Charlie replies, his tone softer than before. You're good with people. Those kids seem to like you. Barron chuckles. Kids are easy to talk to. Adults are the tricky ones. Charlie smirks. You got that right. For the first time, there's a hint of a smile on Charlie's face, and Barron takes it as a small victory. So, Charlie, Barron says, changing the subject, What kind of work did you used to do? Charlie hesitates, then shrugs. Construction, mostly residential stuff. Houses, apartment buildings. I was good at it too. But then the company I worked for shut down, and I couldn't find anything steady after that. One thing led to another. His voice trails off, but Barron doesn't press. That's tough, Barron says. But construction's a skill. Maybe you can get back into it. Charlie scoffs. Easier said than done. Nobody wants to hire a guy like me. Why not? Barron asks. You've got experience. That counts for a lot. Charlie shakes his head. Doesn't matter. People take one look at me and think I'm a lost cause. Barron leans forward, his voice firm. You're not a lost cause, Charlie. You're just going through a rough patch. Everyone does at some point. Charlie looks at him, his expression wavering between skepticism and gratitude. You really believe that, don't you? I do, Barron says without hesitation, and I think you should too. For the first time, Charlie doesn't argue. Instead, he nods slowly, as if considering the possibility. As the evening winds down and the shelter begins to empty, Maria approaches the table. We're about to close up for the night, she says gently. Barron looks at Charlie. Do you have somewhere to go? Charlie shrugs. I'll figure it out. Barron hesitates, then stands. Wait here for a second. He walks over to Maria and speaks with her quietly before returning to Charlie. I asked Maria if she could help you connect with some resources, Barron says. She knows a few programs that might be able to get you back on your feet. Charlie looks at him, his eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and uncertainty. Why are you doing this? Barron smiles. Because everyone deserves a second chance. The shelter grows quieter as most of the guests finish their meals and begin to trickle out into the cold night. Volunteers bustle around, clearing tables and stacking trays, but Barron's attention remains focused on Charlie, who still sits across from him. There's a subtle shift in Charlie's demeanor. He's less guarded now, his posture more relaxed, though his eyes still carry a deep weariness. Barron sits back in his chair, giving Charlie space to process everything. Maria's great, he says after a moment. If anyone can point you in the right direction, it's her. She's connected to a lot of programs that help with housing and jobs. Charlie runs a hand through his scruffy hair, letting out a long breath. It all sounds good on paper, but I don't know. I've tried programs before. Nothing ever sticks. Maybe this time will be different, Barron says, his tone gentle but insistent. Charlie looks at him, a flicker of frustration in his eyes. You don't get it, kid. It's not just about finding a place to stay or a job to do. It's about climbing out of this hole I've been stuck in for years. And every time I think I'm making progress, something happens, and I'm right back where I started. Barron nods, absorbing Charlie's words. That's got to be tough, he says. But you're still here, Charlie. You haven't given up. That says a lot. Charlie snorts, shaking his head. Haven't had much of a choice. Maybe not, Barron concedes. But every step forward, no matter how small, is a win. You've just got to keep going. Charlie studies him for a long moment, the hardness in his eyes softening. You really believe all this stuff, don't you? I do, Barron says without hesitation. And I believe in you. The words hang in the air, and for a moment, neither of them speaks. Then Charlie breaks eye contact, staring down at the table as if trying to hide the emotion threatening to surface. Thanks, he mutters, his voice barely audible. Barron smiles. Anytime. Maria approaches the table, holding a clipboard and wearing her signature warm smile. Charlie, I talked to one of the coordinators from the housing program I mentioned earlier. They have an opening at their transitional housing facility. It's not far from here, and they can help you with job placement too. Charlie looks up, his eyes wide with surprise. Just like that? Maria nods. Just like that. I can call them tonight and let them know you're interested. You'd need to check in tomorrow morning to fill out some paperwork, but they're ready to help you get started. Charlie's gaze shifts between Maria and Barron, his expression a mixture of disbelief and cautious hope. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Barron replies. Just give it a shot. What do you have to lose? Charlie nods slowly, his grip tightening around the edge of the table. Okay, he says finally. I'll do it. Maria beams. That's great to hear, Charlie. I'll make the call and get everything set up. As Maria walks away, Barron turns back to Charlie. See? One step forward. Charlie chuckles, the sound softer and less bitter than before. You're something else, kid. I don't know why you care so much, but thanks. I care because I want to, Barron says simply, and because I think it matters. The two sit in companionable silence for a while, watching as the last of the shelter guests filter out. The volunteers are busy cleaning up, but Barron doesn't feel any rush to leave. Do you need a ride to the housing place tomorrow? Barron asks. Charlie shakes his head. No, I can get there. It's not far. Barron nods. Good, but if you need anything else, don't hesitate to ask. I'm serious. Charlie looks at him, his eyes filled with a quiet gratitude. I'll keep that in mind. Maria returns a few minutes later, her clipboard tucked under her arm. Everything's set, Charlie. They'll be expecting you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Charlie stands, offering her a small but genuine smile. Thank you. Don't thank me, Maria replies, glancing at Barron. Thank this guy. He's the one who wouldn't give up on you. Charlie turns to Barron, his expression softening. Guess I owe you one. You don't owe me anything, Barron says. Just do your best. That's all I ask. Charlie nods, his posture straighter than before. I'll try. As Charlie prepares to leave, Barron stands and extends a hand. Good luck, Charlie. You've got this. Charlie hesitates, then shakes Barron's hand firmly. Thanks, kid, for everything. Barron watches as Charlie walks out into the cold night, his steps more purposeful than when he first arrived. There's still a long road ahead, but Barron feels a sense of quiet satisfaction knowing he's helped Charlie take the first step. As the shelter begins to close for the night, Maria approaches Barron with a proud smile. You did good tonight, Barron. Real good. He smiles back, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. Thanks, Maria. I just hope it makes a difference. It will, she says firmly. You may not see it right away, but you've planted a seed, and sometimes that's all it takes. Barron nods, his heart full as he heads toward the exit. The next morning, the sun streams through the windows of the Trump family's kitchen, casting a warm glow over the marble countertops. Barron sits at the table, his phone in hand as he scrolls through the shelter's social media page. He's looking for updates, hoping to catch a glimpse of Charlie's progress. Maria's post catches his eye. A photo of Charlie standing in front of the transitional housing facility, his hands tucked into his pockets, and a cautious smile on his face. The caption reads, Charlie took the first step toward rebuilding his life today. Grateful for the volunteers and supporters who made this possible. Barron can't help but smile. He takes a screenshot of the post and sends it to his mother, Melania, with a quick message. Met this guy last night. Looks like he's on his way. A moment later, Melania replies, Proud of you, Barron. You have such a big heart. Barron sets his phone down and leans back in his chair, a sense of satisfaction washing over him. It feels good to know he played a part in giving Charlie a chance. Later that day, Maria calls. Just wanted to give you an update, she says. Charlie showed up this morning. He looked nervous, but determined. The staff at the facility said he was really polite and cooperative. I think he's serious about turning things around. That's amazing to hear, Barron says. Thanks for letting me know. You're welcome. And Barron, I just want to say, you made a real difference. Not just for Charlie, but for everyone at the shelter last night. Your kindness doesn't go unnoticed. Barron's cheeks flush slightly, but he feels a swell of pride. Thanks, Maria. That means a lot. Over the next few weeks, Barron keeps tabs on Charlie's progress through Maria. He learns that Charlie has started attending counseling sessions and is actively seeking employment. He even hears that Charlie has taken to volunteering at the shelter, wanting to give back to the place that helped him when he needed it most. One chilly Saturday afternoon, Barron decides to stop by the shelter unannounced. He's greeted warmly by Maria and the other volunteers, who are thrilled to see him again. As he makes his way to the dining area, he spots Charlie standing behind the serving counter, ladling soup into bowls with a look of quiet determination. Charlie, Barron calls out, approaching the counter. Charlie looks up, his face lighting up with surprise and genuine joy. Barron, what are you doing here? Just wanted to check in, Barron says. Looks like you're doing great. Charlie chuckles, wiping his hands on a dish towel. Yeah, well, I figured it was my turn to give back. Can't just take without giving, right? Barron nods, his smile widening. I'm proud of you, Charlie. You're doing amazing. Couldn't have done it without you, Charlie says, his tone sincere. You gave me that push I needed. I owe you more than I can say. You don't owe me anything, Barron replies. I'm just glad to see you happy and moving forward. The two share a handshake, but it's more than that. It's a moment of mutual respect and understanding. Before leaving the shelter, Barron and Charlie sit down for a quick chat. Charlie talks about his plans to eventually find a place of his own and reconnect with his estranged family. Barron listens intently, offering words of encouragement and support. As Barron steps outside into the crisp winter air, he feels a deep sense of fulfillment. The world is far from perfect, but moments like these remind him that small acts of kindness can have a ripple effect. In the weeks and months that follow, Barron continues to volunteer at the shelter whenever he can. He becomes a familiar face to the staff and guests, a symbol of hope and compassion. Charlie's journey isn't without its challenges, but he stays the course. With each passing day, he grows more confident, more self-assured, and every time he steps into the shelter to serve food or lend a hand, he remembers the young man who believed in him when he didn't believe in himself. For Barron, the experience cements a lesson he'll carry with him for the rest of his life. Everyone deserves a chance, and sometimes all it takes is a little kindness to change someone's world.